Do you remember when the 5D Mark II came out? Every test footage video had this one particular shot in it. And as overused as that shot was, in my opinion, it's actually the best B-roll shot you can get for a project. The video portrait. So the main reason that I love a portrait shot is because it allows the audience to build a connection with the subject. I've always thought that when the subject doesn't acknowledge the camera, the piece ends up feeling voyeuristic. As an audience, you almost feel guilty for watching this person's story. But when they look into the camera, almost acknowledging it, that signals to the audience, even subconsciously, that the subject is allowing you into their story. They're giving you permission to watch. And I think there's something in that invitation into their world, into their story. Even as subconscious as it may be, the audience picks up on that. And the audience allows themselves to feel something for that character because they were given that permission to watch. See, this is something that Last Chance U does perfectly. When you have one of the coaches or athletes looking into the camera, those shots add a layer of emotion. You don't feel like a voyeur watching this anymore because the subject has acknowledged your presence and they've accepted that you're there watching them. They've allowed you to watch them. It's that subconscious invitation that the audience is picking up on when they see the subject looking into the camera. I know it sounds weird, but I want to use some of my past projects here as an example, and hopefully it will paint the picture a little bit better. So when I shot for the Lift Life Foundation, at its core, those were good documentation pieces about what happened during those month-long renovations. But from an audience's perspective, unless you were a big construction nerd, you needed a stronger connection with a subject.
That's just where I grew up, lifting.
Without that human element, it just solely feels like a construction documentary. That's not inherently bad if that's the goal. But the goal of the project was to tell the story of why these high schools were getting the renovations. And some of those stories really focused on an individual or a group of individuals. So ultimately, if I could go back and redo them, I would ensure that I'm getting a portrait shot of every single teacher, student, staff member, parent. If we interviewed you, I'm getting a portrait shot of you. Because as someone behind the camera, I don't know when, how, or if my post team is going to need that shot, but I promise you, they're not going to complain if you get it. In fact, for all my editors out there, let me know down below in the comments if you've ever said the words, "That's too much B-roll." I didn't think so. All right, so how do we shoot the portrait shot? And then on my action, look up and smile into the camera. Action. I love the prompt, on my action. Run through a few different things. On my action, look up and smile. On my action, just stare with a straight face into the camera. And you just roll between all of these prompts. Let the camera roll. By just taking the camera out of it, in a sense, you're building a bit of more rapport with that subject. The goal is to capture who they are and their personality in one shot. Whatever they want to do, it's got to feel natural to them. As a viewer, I should be able to see that shot and be able to tell you something about that person. Ask any portrait photographer. That's the hardest part about taking portraits, is getting this person's personality to come out in one frame. So how you shoot it, that's totally up to you. Look, I'm a fan of shallow depth of field, anywhere between like a 35 and 85 range, but it's totally going to be up to you, your style, and even the project that you're working on. Get him close to the camera, get him far back from the camera. Whatever works for the piece you're doing, that's what you got to do. And if you don't know how it's going to get used in the edit, get it all. Give your post team every opportunity for success. Okay, so speaking from an editor's point of view, the great thing about a portrait shot is that they can be used to showcase so many different types of moods and emotions. By getting that portrait shot on set, you're setting your post team up for success no matter which way they take the story. Because when you use that portrait shot in an edit, you make the story about that subject. The audience connects with that character. Now, this can work either for or against you, depending on what the goal of that video is. Okay, for example, in the behind-the-scenes doc for a My Road Reel short film, I used a collection of portrait shots of all the crew and the cast to make a bit of a connection with the audience. And I think it worked well for that. Now, there are times where this could backfire on you, though. In the In It For Life commercial campaign I did, the shots of the subject looking into the camera don't work with that video. Because as an audience, you were supposed to almost envision yourself as one of these characters. But by having the subjects look into the camera and make that connection with the audience, you subconsciously think that this is about them, and they're allowing you into their world to see their story. By either using or not using a portrait shot, you're deciding whose story you're making this out to be. If you have your subject look into the camera, they're in some way interacting with the audience, meaning that piece is about the subject. But if they don't acknowledge the camera, you're allowing the audience to see themselves as that character. The portrait shot isn't outdated. Yeah, it was overused from like 2008 to 2012, but I'm telling you, it still serves a purpose. In fact, let's make 2023 the year we bring back the portrait shot. All right, if you love a portrait shot, give me that thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And until the next one, peace out.